This podcast is Intel enhanced. To see pictures, articles, and links of what's being discussed, download the Intel app.
Hello, welcome to the BiG Scuba Show.
Hello, my name's Will. I'm the founder of Sea Lion Boards, and I'm here with Gemma and Ian on the BiG Scuba Podcast to talk about sea lion, paddleboarding, and sustainability in water sports.
Welcome back to the BiG Scuba Podcast. We are your hosts, Gemma and Ian. Before we get cracking with today's episode, we just want to make sure you have hit that follow button or the subscribe button, depending on what platform you are listening on. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you enjoy what you're going to hear today, we would really appreciate it if you can leave a review and a 5-star rating. So now that's out of the way, we just want to say welcome and thank you for all tuning in, and now it's time to dive into today's episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the BiG Scuba Podcast. My name's Ian. I am your dive master and co-host of the BiG Scuba. And with me is...
Hello, I'm Gemma and I'm the other co-host.
Yes. And together we make up the BiG Scuba and all the fun and games that go with everything that's BiG Scuba.
Yeah.
What's this, 130...
The 135th episode today.
Wow. We're banging through them, which is really cool. Let's talk about what we've been up to. So, talk about that. We've got a guest for our lovely listeners.
We have Will Marsh from Sea Lion Boards.
Yeah, and so we'll be talking to him in a little while. We hope everyone's can't believe it's been 2 weeks since we last recorded.
I think it's a bit longer than that, isn't it? 3 weeks, yeah.
And we try and bring these episodes out every sort of couple of weeks, don't we? And can't believe it. The time goes so quick. So I hope everyone's had a good couple of weeks. We've had a couple of new listeners. I know Ben and Josh, because how do I know? Because they were on the course when I was their dive master last weekend at Stony Cove.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you had a couple of visitors, didn't you, to the BiG Scuba flag?
Yes, yeah. So hello to UK Diver. So hello to him and his friend Dean, who came along as well. It was always good to meet listeners and people who enjoy the podcast. It's really cool. Usually we put the flag up, don't we, wherever we go,
mm-hmm.
And send it aloft. So it's always a bit of a marker for people, and it's really good that they came along and said hello. It's really nice. Not met them before.
Yeah, they're listeners, aren't they? So
yeah, and they were diving. I don't think they dived both days. They dived the Saturday, but Viz was really good. At Stony, seems to be really good at the minute. Water temperature about 13 degrees, and it was quite quiet actually, because I thought that was going to be. Thought it might have been quite busy. But yeah, that was quite quiet, which I think was probably the weather.
Yeah,
maybe
it wasn't
put people off on the Sunday. Saturday was quite busy, but the Sunday was quite quiet, really.
Yeah, the forecast wasn't great, was it?
No. So I was with Richard from Crystal Seas, the instructor. Was his dive master on the Paddy Advanced, and Crystal Seas had 2 groups there doing open waters. So nice small group. That was really good. And I quite like being involved with the advanced because it's really good. And you see people move on from the open water stage of diving to they're now thinking about other things that you can actually do. And you get people come along. One of the guys done 80 dives, most of it abroad. And Ben or Josh, I forget which was which, they he was pretty new diver. He'd only just done his open water and come along, done a few dives, I think about half a dozen other dives. So it was really good. It was really good to and they were really great in the water. They're just doing pleasure dives really, with some things to do like navigation, performance, buoyancy, and we went on Sunday, did deep spec. So we went to the Stain Garth. Visibility was really clear, and we were first down. That was really nice dive. Second dive, went to Nautilus over the top, down to Wessex, along the bottom, There's a great big chassis there, which I think is like off a Land Rover or something. And that was really nice. Two nice dives on Sunday as well. So that's good.
That's
and
good.
then the third dive on Sunday, we just went to the Gresham and showed them the Gresham. So saw a big old pike in the cockpit as well, hanging upside down with all the little fry perch as well.
Yeah. Oh, well, it sounds like a good weekend.
It was, yeah, it was really good. So that's the last teaching weekend as well. So that's it now on the DM front till next probably April. I think it'll be early April when we're up there next.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's good.
So so well done everybody who was there the weekend. And once again, thanks for those who come out and said hello. It's always nice to hear from people.
Yeah.
Anything else? So what have you been up to?
No diving. Just been.
You've been doing some walking, haven't you?
Climbing a couple of mountains. Yeah. So did a couple of mountains in South Wales. So something a bit different. Yeah. So had a big adventure, but not under the water.
Good view.
Yeah. So that's it from me.
Yeah. Excellent. Right. Well, let's talk about our guest. And so we were looking around at, because most of us divers, we love just being around the water, don't we? Whether it's underwater, over the water. Yeah,
and paddleboarding is something that's quite topical. It's obviously expanded since lockdown. So we just thought we'd get a paddleboarder on. He is a diver, but we were speaking about the paddleboarding side of things because he's got a very good sustainable message with his paddleboards, which is the most important thing that obviously appealed to us, and obviously hopefully will appeal to our listeners as well.
Yeah, on every sale, I believe 1% of the cost goes to a charity of a customer's point of view choice.
Yeah, which is really good. So obviously, again, a bit like other people we're linked up with, like SDC Watches, something goes back into helping conserve the environment or marine.
1% goes to the planet and a charity of the customer's choice.
Yeah,
which is really good, isn't it?
It is good. Yeah. So he's been going a few years, I think 5 or 6 years, and obviously it kind of came into its own in lockdown. So he's now full-time the founder and director of Sea Lion Boards. Yeah,
and they are really, really smart looking boards, because I quite like them, because they when you look at them, you think, oh, are they wood? But they're not. They're inflatable.
Yeah, all their boards are inflatable. So it means, again, they're very easy to transport around. You don't need a reef rack. You just need a car, obviously, that's big enough to pop it into. They do the paddles, but they do some accessories as well, like dry robes. They do like a lightweight robe. They do a water bottle, and I think they do some dry bag as well.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Yeah.
The deck pad, each board deck pad is made with algae biomass, which offsets on average an equivalent of over 1,000 hours of smartphone usage.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
So, it is, especially the amount of time you're on the phone.
Yeah, and Will comes from a marketing and product design background, so obviously you can tell that through the design of the boards as well, because they're quite unique in the way they look as well.
They are, yeah. I can't think of any other manufacturers that use that wood effect on the boards. I might be wrong.
But yeah, it is quite deceiving. On first impressions, you think they are like a wooden stand-up board.
Yeah, solid board, but they're not.
No, 100% inflatable.
Yeah, which is really cool, because that's the beauty of paddleboard, and is that, especially inflatable, you literally don't have to have a big car or anything like that. You can just stick it in your boot, go to wherever you want to go, inflate it up within a few minutes, and off you go. You've got a board that you can take anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, so great for anybody thinking about getting one for somebody for Christmas or getting ready for the new season in 2023. But again, you can paddleboard all year round. So you just need.
Why did it take COVID for us all to wake up to this great thing of, hey, look what you can do on the water, and you've got, where can you go in the country where you're a long way away from some kind of water,
No,
whether it's a canal, whether it's a river, whether it's the sea, even in the Midlands. And the Midlands are some of the furthest away from the sea. I've got loads of canals and rivers.
Yeah, and exactly like where I was in South Wales last weekend. Yeah, there's plenty of reservoirs and lakes and rivers, but there was a canal as well, the Monmouth Canal. So you think that's just like a huge body of water that's great for paddling.
Yeah, there is. And you ever have stuck? We follow Canal and River Trust, and they're big on social media, always sharing. They're often got, if you go on their website or go on their social media, different routes you can use as well, which is really cool. And you should get a license.
Yeah,
if you're on the internal waters, you should have a license to use a craft on the waterways. So do be aware of that. But it's apart from that, it's free.
Yeah, you just need the right safety gear, check the weather, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're ever thinking, right, what safety gear do you need, send us a message. We'll help you out.
Yeah. No, we are paddle boarders, so we have got the gear and obviously the right people in connection.
We have the gear and some idea.
We do a little bit. Yes, yeah.
We're not professionals by any means, but it's been kayaking and paddleboarding, especially kayaking, several years now. Hello, Paul. And we've got a fair idea of what gear, especially heading out to sea, what you should have.
And what you should check before you go.
And definitely what you should check, because you do need to know them tide times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it's a podcast open to divers and non-divers, very much so.
Well, this is it. And, us divers, as we said before, we're not just about under the water.
No. And, there's lots of other things to do on top of the water as well. So, yeah, it's definitely a good listen, and something that if you've dabbled about it and thought about it, then this might be the time to actually.
I can think of our friends at CrossFit. They love getting out on the water and doing some paddleboarding.
Yeah.
I can think of quite a few divers who some weekends, if they're not diving, they're out on they're kayaking and exploring the Broads and what have you. And also there's quite a few divers out there whose partners don't dive for whatever reason, but this is something you can share where you can get tuition. There's lots of places about where you can get tuition how to paddleboard and learn. But you can literally just buy one, and or buy two, and you both go off up the river and have hours of fun.
Yeah, and also you're very close to wildlife, and it's another perspective of the watery world. You're on top of the water looking down, and you've got the riverbank.
Just don't get too close to the swans.
No, well, you've got to respect your environment.
Yes.
It's their environment.
Because swans on a small river can be tricky.
Yeah, they're quite what do you call it? Territorial.
Yeah.
So
and quite smart as well. They know.
Yeah, we have had an experience with swans, yes. But keep your distance. That's all you will say. So.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of us running on.
Yes.
Thanks for downloading. Thanks for listening. Also, we should say, if you want to look Sea Lion paddleboards up, they got good reviews on Trustpilot, which is another good reason why we want to get involved with them.
And at the time of this podcast, they have got 40% discount on their paddleboards. So, it's a good time to buy, but you can also get an extra 5% off using a promotional code we've got called, you just use the code BiG Scuba. So
you had to think then, didn't you?
Yeah. So if you can, if you're thinking about it, now's the time to buy. They're cheaper than they've ever been.
Christmas is round the corner.
Yeah. So 40% off plus an extra 5%. And you just plug in BiG Scuba at the promotional code at your checkout.
Once again, the BiG Scuba saves you money.
Yeah. So
how cool is that?
Yeah. BiG Scuba code is used. So you can use it for Sea Lion boards, you can use it for SDC watches, and you can use it for happy bottles now as well.
Yeah, we try and keep it simple for our listeners. The other thing I was just going to say as well, don't forget to leave us a review. It's really important. Some people have left us some reviews, but it's also good to get those written reviews as well. So, but if you can go on to iTunes, especially, and leave us a 5-star review, that would be really great. It just helps us get found, helps your buddy finds us as well. So there we go.
Yeah, and if you've got any questions for us, drop us a DM on our social media platforms.
Oh, don't forget the hashtag #BigScuba.
Yep. So any questions about diving or anything related to the podcast or on the water, by the water, just drop us a message.
Yeah, we'll try and help.
Yep. So I think that's the majority of our news, isn't it? So
I think so.
Quiet.
Yeah, I think so. We'll be back after this in a sort of 2 weeks' time with the next episode. But for right now, let's get him on and have a chat.
Yeah, we'll get Will from Sea Lion Boards and listen to his story and all about the paddle boards.
Awesome. Okay, Will Marsh is with us on the BiG Scuba Podcast today with Gemma and Ian. And so, Will, how did you get started in paddleboarding, and how did you've got this business going? So how did you start your business?
A few years, COVID's kind of made it a bit longer than that, but 5-6 years ago, I had a bit of a family tragedy, and won't go into details, but kind of made me kind of push to do more with my life. And I was playing a lot of rugby at the time, and I am and still am very prone to getting injured. And I found that paddleboarding was just a great rehab sport that wasn't as much impact as rugby. And I saw it as a very emerging market when I first started looking into creating a business for it. And especially with my passion for sustainability, and I always wanted that to be part of a business I started, and a proper business. I've always done little things here and there. I was the kid at school that sold fake Ray-Bans and those sorts of things. So I wanted to start a bit of a legitimate business, but also with the things that I was passionate about within it. And it just so happened that paddleboarding kind of fitted the emerging market and the whole sustainability side of it. 5, nearly 6 years later, we're here, going to be a very tough, difficult years ahead. But it's exciting.
It's a lovely sport, and I've been kayaking probably nearly 10 years, and paddleboarding probably for the last 3 or 4
years.
Yeah. And we normally talk to dive. This is a scuba podcast, and we do normally talk to divers. But we wanted to speak to you because paddleboarding is very linked to the whole world of diving and the whole underworld, and the ocean and the seas and the rivers. It's all linked. A lot of divers do paddleboard. In the UK. Particularly through the winter, a lot of people don't dive, but on a nice day in the winter, you can get out on the paddleboard and you can explore the rivers. And we live in East Anglia. We've got the Broads. It's in close proximity, and it is really great. And that's the whole one of the reasons why we want to get you on. Now, how long have you actually been paddleboarding?
It would have been the time. It's like 6 years I've been paddleboarding, and I never really had my own board. When I first started, I was just borrowing and kind of renting. Right. And then when I started the business, I've just always had boards because it's the nature of the business. But you're totally right. The kind of connectivity you have with the water, especially paddleboarding, even though you're on top of it, you see it from a completely different vantage point, and you'll be in the middle of a river that, unless you're on a boat, you won't see certain parts of nature. And I think with any water sports, whoever does it will have that kind of eco-conscious about them anyway, because you're kind of in that environment and you want to kind of protect it. And for us, it was kind of a no-brainer. And it's good to see that other brands are doing it, especially with charity donations and kind of looking at the materials they're using, because customers do care about that, especially in water sports.
Yeah.
Definitely. So is that something like when you decided you'd create a paddleboard brand that you were going to make the paddleboard out of kind of sustainable or sort of environmentally friendly product?
Yeah, so when I first started, I wanted it. Firstly, I was like, I want to give money back to charity, because as a business, businesses can decide how much profit they have at the end of the year. And saying like a percentage of profit, if you make sure you spend all your profit, so at the end of the year you have no profit, then a percentage of 0 is 0. So from the beginning, we wanted to kind of be able to say that we were actually contributing, and that's where we joined the 1% for the planet. We were for like 1 or 2 years very kind of new, and being a new business, it's quite difficult to actually purchase those materials, purchase those those sustainable materials, because they have MOQs, minimum order quantities. So you have to be ordering a lot more than just starting off. So at the beginning, we started with charity donations, but then we always wanted to use more materials that were using less petroleum, reducing our carbon footprint as much as we could. And what we're doing now is by no means like even a smidge of what we want to be doing. And we've got a huge amount of passion for what we want to change, but we're still small still. And hopefully people see that we are doing the best we can. Because what we do now is more than some of the biggest brands in the market. Even though our impact might be small, hopefully the ripple will continue and make a bigger one.
Yeah, well, that's it. Everybody's got to start somewhere, and every little helps.
Yeah, exactly. Cause. And I will never say that I myself is perfect, and the brand is not perfect. There's lots of things we can improve on. We want to be a B Corp eventually, and we have all these massive ambitious things. But the way I see it is, you may forget your plastic bag to go to the shop one time, but if a million people remember their plastic bags, it's got a much bigger impact.
Yeah.
So it is just about that. It's about businesses taking on that responsibility a lot more, because consumers are doing their best, but unless businesses are doing theirs as well, the impact won't be as large.
Yeah. So where did the name come from?
To be honest, people keep asking me that, and I'm like, I wish I had such an amazing story for it. But like, it honestly was that I love seals. I used to go to the seal sanctuary when I was younger in Cornwall, and I just absolutely love seals and sea lions. And it just was one of the first names that came to me. And I looked online to see if there was a brand, a stand-up paddleboard brand, and there wasn't. So I was like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I wish it was more in depth and it was like a deep story, but
no, that's fair enough, isn't it? It does work though.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah. So how many different types of board do you produce?
So we only do inflatables at the moment. This year we and the last couple of years we've only done 4 boards with one range, whereas next year our range that is actually going to be announced in the next month or so for 2023. We're bringing in 2 new ranges, one that's replacing the current, and then another range which is on the more affordable end of the scale. With everything that's going on in the world, we needed to kind of change our strategy slightly, but that's not saying like I don't like the word cheap. That word doesn't really come into our business. Everything we do will be as good as they can be with the materials we use, but the more affordable range is like kind of scaled back a little bit in terms of spec. just to bring that affordability down a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, well, that sounds good. Yeah, something out there. And obviously we are heading into tricky times with the expenditure people have got, or the spare money people have got or will have. Yeah.
And I mean, the industry's seen it hugely this year. I don't know about other water sports, but paddleboarding has seen like a 70% drop from the previous year. COVID was kind of a silver line. Well, it's horrible to say, but a silver lining of COVID was just how much time people had to spare and money to this industry, but not just this industry, but loads of industries. But now people are back at work full time. People don't have as much time in their evenings. They don't.
The crazy period is finished.
Yeah, I know. So
give me a paddleboard. I need a paddleboard right now.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy, and I think the market shifted a lot in the last couple of years as well, with people when it was all the rage and kind of like a fad. People were buying lots of cheap stuff because like a lot of cheap kind of flooded the market very quickly during COVID. And I think what's happened, some of it's of the 70% will be people that are were doing it in COVID, but then kind of just got bored of it because it was a fad.
Yeah.
And then they don't have any spare time to do it anyway. But it just kind of, what they bought was like the cheap stuff from maybe large retailers I won't say names of.
Well, we see them for sale, don't we?
Yeah.
But again, it proves that it is something that people want to do. If the brands, the supermarkets are getting on the bandwagon and selling inflatable paddleboard.
And like I was saying earlier, like it's just such an accessible sport. You could be 10 years old, you could be 80 years old, like you could be 30 kilos. I mean, that is very light. You could be 50 kilos or like 150 kilos, and you will be able to find a board that can take you. You have to look probably for like the bigger brands that have the larger variety of boards. But also it has those different kind of aspects of the sport that you may not get from surfing. So like paddleboarding, you can get an all-round board that you can go down on a lake, you can go onto the ocean and just plod along, like mess around with your family. And then you can go touring with a bigger board, a longer board with a more of a touring shape with all your gear, your camping stuff. And then like you can get onto racing, and there's lots of different kind of parts of paddleboarding. Whereas with surfing, yes, you've got the long boards, you've got the short boards, so you can do like harder turns, but you're always in the water and getting cold. So and if you're not really putting time into it, into surfing, it's quite a difficult sport to get into. But with paddleboarding, I think one of the reasons it became so popular is because it just allowed people to get out, but also it was just so easy for people to pick up. Of any ages and sizes, and that's the beauty of it. Really, it's great because we've got customers of all ranges of people, which is just fantastic.
So prior to you thinking about doing paddleboarding or setting a company up, did you have any kind of connection to the water?
Well, so when I was younger, I used to surf and windsurf a lot, and I used to be at every year. Me and my family used to go to Paul's F and Newquay and Cornwall every year. So I used to like surf down in Newquay and Paul's F. So I've got that connection when I was younger. The older I got, I did kind of I didn't do it as much as I kind of hoped, but I went to Bournemouth Uni, was there for 5 years. I was on the Golden Coast for a long time, and then I moved down to Plymouth after university, and that's where the brand was kind of born in Plymouth. South Devon and South Cornwall are just such beautiful places. And again, you can't really explore these places without, like, it gave people the ability to explore places they hadn't ever been because they'd never had the means to do it. And being able to explore the South Downs and not the South Downs, the South Hams, and like down in Salcombe and stuff. It's beautiful down there. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Diving wise, they pretty much dive all year round on that south coast, and the water temperature is usually warmer there than it is, for us, or even further north. So what's your sort of go-to board, if you like, and where do you like to, if you're going to go somewhere, and where do you like to go?
So my go-to is it would be a longer board, like our 12-foot 6, our Tasman, or like potentially the new one that's coming in, which I can't say yet. But I prefer the longer boards just because they got a bit more volume, because I'm 100 kilos. I'm not a small guy. And also I like to go a bit faster, and I like to just go a bit longer distances. In terms of location, if I was close to it, I would love to do South Devon, South Cornwall, every day, all day.
Yeah.
But because I'm in London, the closest place to me is Richmond. And to be fair, Richmond is stunning. And like go up to Teddington Lock, and come back, stop off at a few pubs. And yeah, it's great. It is a really beautiful location. You wouldn't think it's the Thames, because you think Thames is muddy and sewage, but up in Richmond and Teddington and Kingston and stuff, it's really
nice part there.
Yeah,
it's really nice.
Yeah.
But do you guys, because when I spoke to you about this podcast, you guys were traveling up to do a weekend. Do you know how many miles you've done every year to do your scubaing?
Oh, blimey.
No, that's
Well, the last trip was 1,300 miles, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the one that we were on, I think, wasn't it? When we were traveling up to the Farne Islands, then we went over, so that's East Coast. Then we went over to the West Coast to do an inland site.
Yeah.
Then back to the East Coast to do sea.
Sorry, Ford.
And then after that, we then went into Scotland to Loch Long and did another dive, and then
Wow.
all the way back.
And
To
that
be
was
fair-
for 3 days.
Yeah, we were away
No, about 5, wasn't it?
4 nights. We were away, weren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Still a lot of driving.
To be fair,
Yeah.
Ford never say to us like, don't put too much don't put any miles on or anything. So we've said to him before, like, Orkney or somewhere like that, and they're gone, yeah, okay, yeah. All right then.
Yeah, and distance is a bit irrelevant. With 2 people driving, sharing the driving, you can get so far. I mean, back from Scotland in a day, and it wasn't that big a thing, was it?
No, we did Wales in a day, didn't we?
Yeah.
Wales and back.
Oh wow, nice. Where in Wales?
We went to the NDAC, which is the National Diving Academy Centre, which is in Chepstow, which unfortunately is now shut. It's been privately took over for the military. But there was a Go Dive and Road show there last September, and so we went there, got there in the morning, did 2 dives.
I think we just
Turned
did one,
round,
didn't we? Yeah.
Well,
and then-
stayed for the show, and then headed home afterwards. So we do some magic. We were looking at
Swanage
Pier, weren't we?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But that was it would have been on a day, so it would have been in total 12 hours driving.
Jeez.
And about 2 hours if we got 2 dives in.
Yeah, so that was probably a bit ambitious, we thought, with the weather predictability
Yeah,
as well. So.
that was going to be a bit iffy with the weather, so we decided to play it safe and go to Stony Cove.
But yeah, it just shows you you can fill your time and have the best time as well.
Yeah, and actually, it just goes to show that people. I mean, I know I took it for granted years ago, and I kind of still do. I wish I explored more. But people definitely take for granted the shore, the coastline we have. UK has got such a variety of coastline that we will never ever explore as a person, which is such a shame because it is such a huge variety and it's just so beautiful, so much of it.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show how far you can travel to find some great locations around the UK.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For paddleboarding, so we've got the coast, got the rivers, and then we did paddleboarding on Loch Long, and you think, amazing scenery and amazing expanse of water, and really it's accessible to everybody in the UK.
You don't need to go anywhere. I mean, being an island is quite good for the paddleboarding sport.
So it's definitely, so with your paddleboards, is your market predominantly UK based, or do you export?
Yes, so at the moment it is like 95% UK. We obviously want to get into Europe and North America.
Mm-hmm.
But Europe is a bit of a pain at the moment because of Brexit. And then North America is somewhere again we want to get into, because that's one of the largest markets in the world. Well, it is the largest market for paddleboarding, but it's getting into it. It's getting a distributor, getting people on side, and our focus has been and will remain the UK for the time being. But our goals are to get there for sure. And obviously the goal is to get South Hemisphere, because then it's all year round and you don't have to rely on a good summer.
Yeah, or a decent wetsuit.
But then our Broads, you look at our Broads, we've been out winter time, and that's really nice. You get a nice sunny winter's day, and the river's lovely. Don't want to fall in because it's blooming cold. But
I mean, that's the thing. I would, and I have done many a times, and a lot of our tribe riders will paddle through the winter. But majority of the market are fair weather paddlers currently. However, the last 2 years have seen more people shifting towards kind of the touring stuff. So like a recreational all-round board, they're normally 10'6". It's the same as ours. Yes, you can go like plod around and like play around with your family, but if you want to do a longer trip or a longer journey in a day, it's going to be quite a bit of a struggle because of the shape of it, the extra fins, and you can't take as much weight, so you can't take any equipment with you. So it definitely, but we're definitely seeing a bit of a shift for people wanting to do those longer trips, either really long day trips or even potentially overnight trips. We've got a couple of ladies, but a lady called Micro Adventures in Scotland, and she is fantastic, and she goes on like weekend long trips with her stuff, and she just camps on her bed on her paddleboard, as her bed.
Really?
Which is awesome. So that's where the market's going for sure.
We regularly, not as regularly as we'd like, do a trip from in North Norfolk, and that's from Morstan Key to Blakeney Point. And it's about a round trip of about 13-14 kilometers. And we've done that always with kayaks, but that would be probably a good place where you could do a touring paddle. We do always take gear with us, and that is you go out with the tide, stay around there, and then you go back with the tide. But full of seals. The seals come up and they come and play around the kayaks, and
we've had 2 amazing trips up there this summer. It's just been incredible.
I did. We've got our Norfolk paddleboards that have some of our boards, but I didn't know that route, so I'll have to get that route off you and speak to Lee.
But you have to get the tides right, and the daylight right as well. It's a bit of a job otherwise,
Well, it would be a bit safety as first, whatever up there, and the tides are pretty wild, when they come in or go out. So you've got to, you've certainly got to know.
And I actually on that, I think that's a big thing in the paddleboarding industry at the moment is safety, which is obviously paramount in all sports, especially water sports. But with paddleboarding being so popular, it safety's unfortunately had to catch up on it, especially with so many cheap boards out there in the market. People going out into the ocean not knowing what an offshore wind is and things like this. So there's a bit we take it have been in the last year or so taking it extremely seriously by trying to share as much safety information as we can with our customers. because education could save lives, really.
Yeah.
And it's the same with you guys, like with scuba diving. I'm sure it's a pretty dangerous sport if you don't take it seriously. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's, we've seen obviously on your website, you've got the RNLI, the water safety message there, and that's key. But yeah, it is just getting the message. It's not to be taken lightly, is it? Going out on the water, or like we do under the water. You've got to weigh it all up and know that you're going to be safe, or have a safer environment to go into.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And have you guys ever had any lessons when you like paddleboarding lessons, or have you just like taught yourself?
Yeah. So I initially had an awareness day, and then we went out on a tour, didn't we? With a guide
from Whitlingham.
Yeah,
it was Whitlingham Lake in Norwich on the boards. And they taught me, because Gemma, you already knew, didn't you?
Yeah.
How to stand up and paddle without falling in, and made
it
the best dry as well.
Yeah. So, and I think we've had some good times on the river. I've been out on the sea here, so yeah, it's just great, and it's freedom as well to get out, and it's you don't really need too much gear or investment. You obviously need your safety gear, and then you're bored, and then you're out there.
But it always surprises me. We've got all this right on our doorstep, and you very rarely see anyone on the river. We've been out, and it is a shame. You do need to get more people out on the exploring, and that's because we've just got all this all on our doorstep to use.
Yeah, agreed, definitely. We're trying our best to sell as many boards as possible. But yeah, it's I think it's unfortunate, but the next couple of years will be very quiet, I think, for everyone. And then hopefully once everything's kind of settled down, and things hopefully stop out in Eastern Europe, and the energy crisis kind of starts sorting itself out, we'll see more people adventuring out and doing sports, doing more things.
Yeah, and also with getting people out in the water, it's that kind of awareness of the environment and the conservation of the environment. And there's so much, obviously, frozen planet and everything. We are facing quite a crisis, and even if it's just getting people on the river to kind of have an awareness of, we need to take care of this environment.
Yeah, and it's kind of with paddleboarding, because you're on the water, you are going to be much closer to the nature, and something we have been trying to educate and will educate further is having to kind of try and hold your distance as much from nature as possible to try and not disturb it. And because some people will, if there's a pup seal on a beach, there has been reports where they'll literally paddle up to it and potentially scare it, and it might just be waiting for its mum. And then if it's scared off, then potentially the mum won't know where it is, and it's then lost its mum, kind of thing. So, but another thing about, especially something I do, is I pick up plastic, unfortunately, all the time. But every time I go out, because you're on the water, you're right next to it. So it's a great opportunity to kind of do as much of your part as possible to kind of pick up a bit of rubbish that's in the rivers. I mean, I can't get trolleys out and like traffic cones out. Unfortunately, that's all over the Thames. But yeah, like being connected, being so kind of at one, excuse the cliche, with nature when you're paddleboarding, it just allows you to, like I said earlier, be from a completely different point of view that you just never would have expected to experience. And it's kind of magical, really. It's great.
So how do you sustainability and your environmental policies, like the heart of of what you do and your products, how do you ensure your manufacturers, your suppliers that you use are being sustainable, using those recycled plastics and things? What sort of checks and what's the go-to phrase?
Well, due diligence.
Due diligence. So what we do to control that is that we purchase the materials. So our board manufacturer or manufacturers will be where they create the boards, but they won't necessarily order all of the material. So, for instance, our deck pads, which are made from algae bloom, and our handles that are made from Ulex, we purchase that material and it's then sent to the supplier. So we then have proof from the material supplier that it's been purchased, and that's the material we're using.
Yeah.
Okay.
For example, with recycled fabric, you get certificates for the fabric you're purchasing. So, for instance, the materials and everything all have to be tested and by labs and everything, and that lab will then provide a certificate for the material passing global recycled standards. For instance, in terms of our recycled PET fabric for our bags, so, and like our dry packs as well. So that for us, it is a great question, and it's extremely important for us to be able to control that. Unfortunately, China does have a bad name for itself, but by us purchasing the material and having that control, we're able to then control the material going into our factory. That puts it then all like kind of assembles it. But then we also, unfortunately, in the last 2 years, haven't been able to visit China because of COVID, and China's COVID policy is still atrocious.
Yeah.
So we have unfortunately had to kind of do our best with quality control, with getting documentation done by our factories whilst we can't visit, basically.
Yeah. But that's good that you've got certain control over the elements that are making up these paddle boards.
Yeah, and it for us, it's well, not just for us. I mean, hopefully for all sustainable businesses or businesses that try and be as sustainable as possible, is like transparency is really important.
Yeah.
You can't pretend to be sustainable if you don't share why you're sustainable or share the documentation and stuff. And we have said to people in the past, like, if you want the documentation for materials we purchase, then just let us know. We'll share them with you. Obviously, blanking out supplier details and stuff.
Yeah, cool.
But we've got nothing to hide. So, it's important to be able to share those details with your customers for sure.
Yeah, no, that's good. So, with the industry in general, is there anything that you would really like to see change within the paddleboard industry?
I would love if they were made from recycled fabrics, but I do think it's a possibility. My background is I did design at uni, but within that I did kind of material processes and stuff. So, but unfortunately, with recycling anything, bar aluminium, but we won't go into that, they lose properties the more you recycle them. And with a paddleboard that is pumped up to such a high air pressure, you can't have any impurities in it.
Yeah, you don't let that go and boom.
Yeah, it wouldn't be very sustainable if it bursts after a month. So I do think there's a possibility in the future, for sure, for paddleboards to be made from maybe better materials to be able to be recycled more. At the moment, the technology is not quite there. There are some things that are hopefully on the horizon, but it's not there yet. But that would be my dream, is for paddleboards to just be made for inflatable paddleboards to be made from recycled fabric and have the ability to be recycled fully at the end of their life, because at the moment they're just not. So at the moment, our aim is to make them last as long as they can. And then if they do have an issue, then repairing them and having them repaired to a quality that it will then again last for as long as it can be.
Yeah, no, that's a good message to, and something that's, you're working on.
Yeah. Again, it comes at a cost, and as a small business, it's not something we can afford right now. Hopefully, the bigger brands will kind of jump in and do it, because that's the thing. Like a lot of people think that all inflatable paddleboards are differently made, but actually, funny enough, most of them are very similar. There may be slight changes in the construction of the rails, the construction of the drop stitch, and then the most important thing is actually the manufacturer putting it together. Because if the manufacturer doesn't put it together properly, then obviously the materials don't matter. But all of the information that other brands have, we have, it's all just marketing, and the information is all pretty much the same. It's just called something different.
Yeah.
But obviously there are different, there's different qualities. You get single skin boards, so you buy that are on the lower end of the market, and then you have your double skin boards, and that's very generic. There's different types of double skin and there's different types of single skin.
Really?
But there's only, I would say, maybe 10 types of constructions, which makes it it is a very simple product in terms of the actual, when you look at the inside of it. But when it comes to recycling, it's not simple, unfortunately.
Okay. So, as we said right at the start, this podcast goes to divers and new divers, people not dived before, and they may have a paddleboard. We don't know, but let's say, for argument's sake, they don't. What would you say is the biggest thing they're missing out on about paddleboarding? Or let's put it another way: why should a diver have a paddleboard in their collection?
So they can be above and below the water. I think the beauty, the main reason I would say to get a paddleboard is to be able to experience waterways in a completely different way. To be able to see a coastline that you may have lived for 20 years and see it from a completely different point of view.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. Being able to see things from a different perspective kind of, I don't know, brings a different meaning kind of to what you're doing, which I think is just great.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, and it gives you another dimension to your normal life as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, people will do a route like 3 times a week, and at every single one they'll see something different. Which is great.
Yeah. One of the things I did a while back was myself and a friend, we, over the course of the whole summer, it's going back a little while now, we took one river, and then every week, every Wednesday, we just explored a part of that, and then got to a point where we could see next portage point, turned around, went back, and then we'd do that. And over the course of summer, we did several miles, and that was really good. And it is really good to do, because you might get, if you travel along a road and you look across and you see these fields and that, you might not know the river's even there.
Yeah.
And then you go a bit further, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I know this bit. And you suddenly you're going along a field, and it's cows and all sorts, and it's a marvelous thing.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. There's you can see all sorts of nature, even cows.
Well, yeah, and the changing of the seasons as well, because every it's like the trees changing now. It's beautiful, and that is just another. From one week to the next, it will be so different. So it's
Yeah. I mean, one thing I do wish was that if the UK was a little bit more extreme, and I'm probably being selfish because I would want that just for paddleboarding, but we're having someone out in Alaska that Steve, he takes photos with our boards, and he's got one of our boards, and some of the scenery he has is just absolutely stunning. And I'm sure he takes it for granted, but if we had a little bit more dramatic scenery and like ice and glaciers and stuff, I think I'd be out every day.
Yeah. But we have got an amazing country with lakes and lochs and sort of fast moving water as well.
Yeah. Haven't done that paddleboarding yet, but definitely would do it for sure.
Yeah. So if you could take 3 people out paddleboarding they don't have to be paddleboarders, but just people that you would want to take out to experience that experience, who would you take?
Okay. Well, this might be, I don't know how controversial this is going to be now. It's not going to be like a dictator or anything, don't worry. Elon Musk would be my first one.
Cool.
So, I mean, some people, I think it might be a bit of an awkward one, is that some people think he's like a bit of an evil genius. And I think, yes, he does have too much.
Why do you think that?
Because if someone was, because I think what he's doing in terms of the products, Tesla, Starlink, and the Boring Company and everything, I think it's all great and he's doing it for a reason, but he definitely doesn't need to be that rich. And for someone to be that rich and not doing more like charitable things. For instance, like Bill Gates, he's a very charitable person, but Elon Musk is not as charitable. So I just think,
to be fair, not that we know.
Yeah, you're right. You are right. But I do think some part of me does think he's a bit of an evil genius, but what he's doing is fantastic, I think. And the more he does, the more we hopefully will progress especially in technology. And then the second one would be like Yvonne Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia and 1% for the Planet. Again, a very wealthy person.
He's giving away his company.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the interesting thing. He's that's one question I would like to ask him, but I just think he would have such a fountain of knowledge and experience, and especially for Sea Lion, that we've got such large aspirations to become bigger and better sustainably. It would just be, I think, a great person to kind of ask those questions to. And then, the third, it would probably be my dad. He's not here anymore, unfortunately, but he is the reason that Sea Lion started, and one of the reasons I have such a passion for sustainability. So yeah, he'd be the third.
Yeah,
excellent.
Good answers. Yeah, we've not had Elon Musk before.
No.
Okay, good.
He's definitely a interesting character, and I think the world does need people like that, because it is people like that basically got us out of the caves, at the end of the day, rightly or wrongly. And but there's a lot of things about these people who you can think, well, actually they could do more, but that's a discussion for another time. Comfort. Let's talk about comfort zone. So what would get you out of your comfort zone? You're paddling along, beautiful day. What would challenge you on your board?
Okay, that's a good question. So something that would definitely challenge me on my board is probably coming up to like a rapids or something. However, I think if I was coming up to rapids, I don't think I'd be a very good paddleboarder, because I should have known where I was going. But I've not done whitewater supping yet. It's definitely something I would absolutely love to do. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie, but that would definitely, I'd be falling off a lot for sure.
I don't know how some of these people do yoga on them.
Oh, what yoga on what, whitewater or paddleboard?
On a paddleboard.
Yeah, it's I can't even like do downward dog in my lounge, let alone on a floating water. We've got a few people doing boards and yoga. Yoga on our boards, and hats off to them. I admire it. They've got great core.
We slipped up. Gemma, you should have got your board out and then shown us how to do some yoga.
Do a headstand on the board.
Can you do that?
No.
She does it all the time. Don't be shy now.
Damn, I haven't got it blown up.
Stitching her up.
Headstands and all sorts.
All right, next time.
Last question to you, Jen.
Last question. What should we say? So if you could have a billboard that you could put out there to the entire world, so it can be words on it, pictures on it, video, what would you put on your billboard and why?
Okay. I apologize if this sounds cliche or anything, but what I would put is life happens. Just that, because I think people kind of forget that there may be sadness, there may be joy, there may be certain things whenever, but all of those things are kind of the building blocks to everything you do. And especially for me, I wouldn't be what I would be doing without sadness. I wouldn't be doing it without hard work. And I think people just, sometimes you need to just stop and just remember that life happens.
And a lot of people say it's riding a wave, so you will go down, but you will come up, and that's exactly how you've got to kind of view it. Is there's a lot of people that are doom and gloom all the time, but you've got to see the
and you also have to kind of and when I say life happens, it doesn't necessarily mean sadness. You also have to enjoy the happy parts and like the exciting parts. I think people forget that when they think like life, you're riding a wave, it's always about the sadness, but people also forget about the exhilarating parts of that wave.
Exactly.
Crossroads, don't you? And I think you either go left with it, you go right with it, you know, and it can take you down a whole different avenue, especially with things like diving. It's something that you will start and you never know where it's going to lead you. And I think you kind of just have to go with it sometimes and let that guide you.
And like, yourself, and there are people out there that have maybe tried paddleboarding, and then next minute they're instructors and outdoor adventurists, and
exactly.
It's anything's possible, and you never know what's kind of around the corner, and you've kind of got to grasp it.
And I it's definitely again cliche, but doing stuff you enjoy, you guys doing what you guys enjoy, and you kind of follow what you like. And I think a lot of people kind of just accept that they're just making money and everything rather than doing activities they may love. Like, for instance, you guys travel all over the country to do something you love, which is cool.
And you wouldn't do it if you didn't love it. And
exactly.
You've just got to do what makes you happy. And it's not all about, sitting in an office earning, if that's not making you happy, don't do it. It's just,
I actually had a question for you guys, a scuba diving question.
Okay.
How deep have you both, what's the deepest you've both been?
So me, I'm only qualified, I'm only advanced, so kind of 25 meters is my limit. And but for me, depth is not an aspiration at all. It's more the experience of diving. And we always say, if like diving in the sea, all the life is at like 10 meters, 5 meters even. Why would you want to go dark and deep and not see seals playing and birds diving in the water? And it's just for me, that's what I think. Depth isn't about diving, isn't about depth.
I totally agree, and we kind of compare this with going to the gym, because there's that very similar thing about how much can you lift and how deep can you go, and there's no medals, there's no competition. And in the diving world, I think some people, and we've had somebody come up to us very recently and said, you're not actually diving unless you're 30 meters down, and it's okay. Well, everyone's got an opinion, and that's cool if that's what they want to do. Personally, so I've been certified to 40 meters. I've done 30 plus a number of times, and I've been to 30 about 38 meters down at Stony Cove, a couple of places. There's one of the few places in the UK that we can get that sort of depth. At the moment, I'm not looking to go any further. That's kind of where I'm sort of sticking. But I'm like Jem. I enjoy the experience. I like the seeing the wildlife and things like that. But I do like seeing the wrecks as well.
Yeah.
So there is that to it. But it has to be the right kind of experience. So I'll do it for a reason, not just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But I think some people, do take, what's the word? Probably don't take it seriously enough, because it is, when you visualize even like 5 meters, that's really deep. When you look at a garage, you look at the average
filling garage, station,
how high the roof is for 5 to 6 meters, and you think, wow, that's deep. And that's only 5. Well, if you magnify that several times, down to like nearly 40 meters, and you look how high that is, it's like, whoa. Serious, serious drop. So you kind of something you need to build up to, and especially if you haven't done those sort of depths for a while. But 40 meters is the maximum recreational limit, where you can, as long as you don't rush up, you can come back. Once you're over 40 meters, then that's a whole different world. So at the moment, that's where I'm up to.
Cool. Nice. And where would be probably your favorite place in the UK that you've been?
Go on, Gemma.
For me this year was the Farne Islands, but I'd say an experience in one of the Scottish lochs, Loch Long, where we went, was a real, because you had the scenery around, and there was an amazing amount of life where we dived, loads of crabs, and we saw a scallop going.
Oh wow, cool.
So that's probably top of my list. But prior to that, it would have been the Farne Islands, diving with seals.
Yeah,
awesome.
We are so blessed in this country with different diving locations. Lundy, amazing place to go diving. Seals are so friendly. I've always got a soft spot for the Farnes, because that was the first place I went and dived in the UK off a boat, and the captains are always really good, and sea houses is great, and the whole weekend experience is awesome, and it's a lovely place. But Loch Long was an absolute amazement, that was, and I can't, there's no other way of painting it. So much life. And the diving was just brilliant. The clarity of the water, could go on. Gemma's really said it. It was awesome. Definitely worth the trip. That was brilliant.
And the best bit was we got a paddleboard out on the loch as well. And it's just So, to dive and paddleboard in the matter of a morning was just
And could you paddle? Would you say you'd be able to not dive off a board, but dive from a board?
Yes, definitely possible. Yeah. If you've got obviously gear rigged up and
fair stuff.
So one of the things we were looking at earlier this year was actually was getting smaller tanks. I've got 15. I dive with a 15-litre tank, Gemma 12, and getting a couple of smaller tanks, sort of like maybe 7 liters.
Yeah.
They're quite lighter and a lot smaller, and really exploring some of the rivers. So we could free dive it and just use it to explore and then snorkel. But it's also nice. You've got that air where you could actually stay down a bit longer as well. So yeah definitely. You could pack light and use the boards to explore and dive.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah, because I mean the boards have got a fairly hefty limit to take, haven't they, weight wise?
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's which is a good thing. So you could, that would be certainly within the realms of possibilities.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so maybe watch this space.
Yes, a sea lion brings out scuba board. Sorry, I kind of asked you questions out of the blue.
No, that's great. No. So for our listeners, if they want to find more about sea lion boards, where is the best place for them to look?
So sea lion boards, all one word.com. And that's us. If they have any questions, they can email us either to will@sealionboards or info@sealionboards.
Yeah, great.
And on Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah. Sorry, you're doing the work for me. Sorry, Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, cool.
Sea Lion Boards again. And to search for them, it's sea space lion boards, not one word.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we'll put the links in the show notes below so people then can look you up and see the range of boards that you've got. Cool. Well, at the moment we do have an end of season deal going, which is actually 40% off for the board packages. So that is the best we've done ever. Obviously, if that goes into the show, or if not, if they go to the website, they'll see anyway. Well, now's the time to get your paddleboard for next year.
Christmas is coming.
Also, say that again.
Christmas is coming.
Exactly, Christmas is coming. So it's a good opportunity to get a very high spec board with a nice paddle for 40% off.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to finish the podcast and people can look you up. So,
cool.
Yeah, so that's really good. Yeah, so thank you, Will, for coming on and telling us.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll inspire some scuba divers to give the paddleboarding a go.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have inspired me to go up to Loch Long for some for scuba diving.
Beautiful,
no, thank you guys for having me.
So we've just spoken to Will Marsh of Sea Lion Paddleboards. That was good, wasn't it?
That was, yeah. I thought that was really good and so nice to be asked some questions as well. Cool.
Took us a bit by surprise, but but it's good to have someone ask us about something like scuba diving, but also the paddleboarding element, how kind of in sync with the scuba diving world that can be.
It is all linked, and especially in the UK, there's a lot of people will pack up the fins over the winter, and it's good to get out on the water, and it's good for your mental health and everything else to explore the rivers. And if you can't get out on the sea, which is, let's face it, winter time is usually quite rough and choppy, rivers, Norfolk Broads and any rivers that are close by often offer sheltered waterways.
Yeah, and that's a good point about mental health, because winter time everybody's a bit, it gets dark.
The sad syndrome.
Exactly. So, but if you get out, on a morning, bright sunny morning, or even it's bright, so get out on the river. So all you need is a relatively calm day, not too windy, and perfect. And
I tell you, when you look at the Sea Lion's website, there's some really nice boards on there, actually.
Yeah, they're nice looking, handsome boards.
There's I quite like some of the boards, and paddles and some of the accessories. There's a lot of, you can see there's a lot of thought gone into it, and I liked his answer as well about how do you ensure suppliers and manufacturers are being sustainable, and they're not just saying here's a sample and then using something else as well. So it's quite nice to hear that there's certificates.
Yes. It's all traceable, and the word transparency, that's key. It's you've got to believe in the product to sell a product if you're going to say it's sustainable, and pass that belief on to the consumers as well.
One of the things that came to mind was and I've not we're not really done this really too much, is could we use one for Blakeney trips? So we'd have to be conscious of how shallow that gets.
The depth and the tides and timing would be pretty crucial, because we've nailed it pretty much this year with tide times and timing, haven't we? So it is
a close run thing. Even with the kayaks, you could catch the bottom and that. So I don't know how that would work, but I guess it'd be do. I've not seen anyone up there with paddleboards.
Not on the area that we go, but maybe we'll have to invite Will along. And,
it'd worry me about the rigid fin on the bottom. Whether that would catch, I don't know.
I think some boards you can get different fins, different depth fins, but that's probably a bit more technical than we discussed. But it's something to consider. But
definitely, something to explore. But definitely, and say thanks to Will for coming on and telling us all about it.
It was great, and we'll be featuring him on hopefully his boards in the future, and look out for other people. If you look at their website, they've got what they call their tribe, so they've got people that use the boards, and they sort of post on their social media about their adventures.
Got a good sale on as well, 40% off. I think just about everything. I think
on the boards. Cool. That's quite a good reduction.
20% off accessories, 40% off boards and paddles. So for Christmas, brilliant idea.
Yeah, and you're getting a real good quality product with the sustainability side, and 1% of their turnover goes to for the planet. So they do donate to charity. So that's another good feel factor about it.
Cool. Well, there we go. Go to sealineboards.com, or hopefully in the future, maybe we go to the bigscuba.com. We'll see how that all pan out.
If you've got a sea lion board, then shout out and let us know how you're getting on, and post us a picture.
Or if you're a diver and a paddleboarder, let us know.
So
before we go, usual thing, we just need to say don't forget to leave us a review. We've had a few people come and shout out. Need to say a couple of things actually about about that. So that'd be, we've had a couple of people write in, so that'd be really good if they can also just say, we love hearing from our listeners saying that they're really enjoying the podcast. But if you can also, if you're listening to us via iTunes particularly, go there, leave us a review, 5-star review. It's free. It just helps other people find us and helps keep things going.
Yeah, and it does help us get found as well. So if you're on iTunes, leave us a 5-star review.
Yeah, brilliant. Right, let's leave it there. Say thank you very much for downloading this episode. Thanks for listening. We will be back in a couple of weeks, and but for right now, that was the
BiG Scuba Podcast.
Excellent. See you soon.
Bye.
Now that does wrap up today's episode of the BiG Scuba Podcast. But if you want to hear more from the podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button depending on what platform you are listening on. That way you will never miss an episode from us. But if you are listening on Apple Podcasts and did enjoy what you heard today, we would really appreciate it if you head to the show page to leave a 5-star rating and review. It really does help us. If you do, please take a screenshot of that review and send it to us on Instagram, and we'll give you a shout out to say a big thank you. If you have any questions for us or anything that has been mentioned in today's episode, be sure to reach out to us on any of our social media platforms or send us an email. The links are in the show notes. We will get back to you no matter what.
If you have made it to this point in the episode, we both want to say a big thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.